pulsated with sound and fury. You want? Well, even if you don't. And to begin with, pass the pepper. What's that you say? The trees themselves are surprised into speech. And have you never, in solitude and despair, talked to the walls, to your idiot pooch, to empty air? I repeat, the pepper, if you please. For if it had not been for peppercorns, then what is ending now in east and west might never have begun. Pepper it was that brought Vasco da Gama's tall ships across the ocean, from Lisbon's Tower of Belém to the Malabar coast, first to Calicut and later, for its lagoony harbour, to Cochin. English and French sailed in the wake of that first-arrived Portuguese, so that in the period called Discovery of India, but how could we be discovered when we were not covered before, we were not so much subcontinent as subcondiment, as my distinguished mother had it. From the beginning, what the world wanted from bloody Mother India was daylight clear, she'd say. They came for the hot stuff, just like any man calling on a tart. Mine is the story of the fall from grace of a high-born crossbreed, me, Moraes Zagoibi, called Moor. For most of my life, the only male heir to the spice trade and big business crawls of the da Gama Zagoibi dynasty of Cochin, and of my banishment from what I had every right to think of as my natural life by my mother Aurora, née da Gama, most illustrious of our modern artists. A great beauty, he was also the most sharp-tongued woman of her generation, handing out the hot stuff to anybody who came within range. Her children were shown no mercy. As rosary crucifixion beatnik chicks, we have red chilies in our veins, she would say. No special privileges for flesh and blood relations. Darlings, we munch on flesh, and blood is our tipple of choice. To be the offspring of our demonic Aurora, I was told when young Bygone painter V for Vasco, Miranda, is to be truly a modern Lucifer. You know? Son of the blooming morning. By then, my family had moved to Bombay, and this was the kind of thing that passed in the paradise of Aurora Zagoibi's legendary salon for a compliment. But I remember it as a prophecy, because the day came when I was indeed hurled from that fabulous garden and plunged towards pandemonium. Banished from the natural, what choice did I have but to embrace its opposite, which is to say, unnaturalism, the only real ism of these back-to-front and Jabberwocky days. Placed beyond the pale, would you not seek to make light of the dark? Just so. Moraes Zagoibi, expelled from his story, tumbled towards history. And all this from a pepper pot? Not only pepper, but also cardamoms, cashews, cinnamon, ginger, pistachios, cloves. And as well as spice and nuts, there were coffee beans and the mighty tea leaf itself. But the fact remains that, in Aurora's words, it was pepper first and one most. Yes, one most. Because why say foremost? Why come forth if you can come first? What was true of our history in general was true of our family's fortunes in particular. Pepper, the coveted black gold of Malabar, was the original stock in trade of my filthy rich folks, the wealthiest spice, nut, bean, and leaf merchants in Cochin, who without any evidence save centuries of tradition claimed wrong side of the blanket descent from great Vasco da Gama himself. No secrets anymore. I've already nailed them up. Chapter 2. At the age of 13, my mother Aurora da Gama took to wandering barefoot around her grandparents' large, odorous house on Cabral Island during the bouts of sleeplessness which became, for a time, her nightly affliction. And on these nocturnal odysseys she would invariably throw open all the windows. First, the inner screen windows, whose fine meshed netting protected the house from midges, mosquitoes, flies. Next, the leaded glass casements themselves. And finally the slatted wooden shutters beyond. Consequently, the 60-year-old matriarch Epiphania, whose personal mosquito net had over the years developed a number of small but significant holes which she was too myopic or stingy to notice, would be awakened each morning by itching bites on her bony blue forearms and would then unleash a thin shriek at the sight of flies buzzing around the tray of bed tea and sweet biscuits placed beside her by Teresa the maid, who swiftly fled. Epiphania fell into a useless frenzy of scratching and swatting, lunging around her curvaceous teak-boat bed, often spilling tea on the lacy cotton bedclothes, or on her white...